we were talking about yoga. I want to switch back to yoga for a second. What are some of the benefits of yoga for people out there, and maybe some of the beginner steps of yoga for people to just practice or try at home?
Well, yoga is for everybody. I'm a therapist as well, professionally, and I have used yoga like with my clients in various settings. So from a physical perspective, almost every exercise can be modified and scaled according to physically where you are. There are postures that can be done in a chair. There are postures that can be done just laying down in your bed even. So don't think that you have to be like an ultimate yogi and stand on your head right out of the gate. There are still several things that I cannot accomplish, but I'm still working towards
Sure.
What my goals are. But from a physical perspective, yoga is really good for strength and flexibility. And it's also a great way to reduce stress and anxiety. There are different various types of yoga, especially in our Miami Valley. We're really lucky to have a lot of different options as far as yoga goes. There are some studios in our area that do hot yoga, that do more of a quick practice, like a vinyasa flow practice, where it's very physically demanding from a strength and flexibility perspective. But there are also types of yoga like restorative or yin yoga, where you're sitting and you're holding postures for longer amounts of time to really get deep into the muscles and the joints and into the connective tissue to help release any tension that you may be holding in the body. And then one of my other favorite practices is yoga nidra, actually, where it's a very relaxing type of yoga, but at times that can be a challenge too, because it brings a lot of emotions to the surface. So there can be like a somatic component that happens with that emotional release. So yoga is a spectrum, and I really encourage people to find the truthfulness in where they may be, and it can change. Like some days I really need to push myself and challenge myself physically, and some days I know I really need to come home to myself and deal with my emotional stuff. So, check in, see what you need from a physical and emotional perspective, and then seek out a teacher or a group of people, or even like online videos or a library book, and just start practicing. It's a practice. It is not something that we are ever going to be masters at. But it's that intentionality that I'm coming to the mat to practice and to show up and to spend time with me.
Yeah, when I think of yoga, I think of the people staring at their phones constantly, staring at TVs, all this information constantly coming in. And yoga is really supposed to suppress that, or maybe just, decompress that, rather. And just practicing, focusing on your breathing is really important in yoga, and not thinking about anything at all, but maybe just a blank state of mind, which resets you. And I did a little research on this. I know we've talked about it. It's important to know for people out there that when you sleep, you're not necessarily resting your mind. Your mind is still very active and could be extremely active depending on how much information you're taking in that day. So yoga is supposed to get you back to square one, not only just being asleep, but being awake and being more aware. Because when you have your mind in a blank state of mind, you can focus more. There's more clarity on the now and the power of now. Right.
That mindfulness is super important. And that can start, just like you said, simply with breath, noticing your breath, even in especially our society. And I think now, since we have to wear masks when we're out in public, be aware of how you're breathing. Most of us are very shallow breathers, and we only breathe down in through our chest, but really we should be breathing all the way down into our bellies, and then allowing that breath to nourish us and come back out. And, that pieced with the fact that when we are in practice, we focus our minds to notice things, but not allow them to take over the physical self in that container that we're creating. It's a challenge, especially in today's life. And if you've got kids and you've got stuff on the stove and you've got phone calls happening and you're trying to work and you're running around and doing all of those things, it's really hard to carve out that time to be still. But in the stillness is where our healing comes. comes, and when our awareness comes, and when our growth comes.
Yeah, and then that breathing into your belly, it like almost resets your lungs. You get that. I remember being little when you crying, you would
Yes.
you would get this, and then you'd come back down. And I think that's what people need to think about when they're focusing on their breathing. That was really great. We don't do it enough. Masks, bringing that up was awesome. So thank you about that. How did you become a yoga instructor?
Well, I've been practicing since I was a kid, actually. I remember being, really young and watching cartoons in the living room on Saturday, like Captain Planet in the morning, on
Nice.
Saturday mornings at 7:30. And finding myself taking weird postures, and my mom would come in and like look at me like I was crazy. But intuitively, my body was already seeking practice at a very young age. And then I started checking books out from the library when I was maybe 10, 11 years old. And then by the time I got into college, we could take it as an elective, So I started taking classes that way, and started to weave it into my exercise practice as I became an adult. But about a year ago, I really just felt the nudge from the universe that now was the time I really felt that I needed to learn more about the history and about how to connect with the postures intentionally, so that I was benefiting my body, but then also to possibly teach. And when I first took yoga teacher training, I really didn't even have the intention of teaching at all. I was doing it pretty much selfishly for me. But then I fell in love with the practice so much that it's something that, why wouldn't this be something to share with everybody else? And even if I just get to share it with my friends in their yards, like it's a powerful practice, and it brings people together. And when we're doing it together in community, I think that there's power there. So
Absolutely.
It's been a journey, but I love it.
No, you helped me out a lot. I was going through some things over the beginning of the quarantine, February, March, and April, and then shortly then after that came out of it. But what are some other licenses that you do have that you haven't mentioned?
Goodness. Well, I have a minister's license. So that's probably something you didn't know about me.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I've never performed a wedding, but I can. And that also allows me to do some spiritual counseling, although I feel like most people can spiritually counsel themselves if they just get quiet enough.
Yeah.
But I'm a licensed occupational therapist. I am a licensed nursing home administrator. I have my master's in business. I tend to really be more proud of the things that I have pursued in the holistic realm. So the Reiki, the aromatherapy, the yoga, I'm really more drawn to all of that. I think that all of the pieces of my education fit together beautifully. But I'm still trying to work out what the universe wants me to do with it all.
Sure. Well, hey, it's not over yet, and it's
no, that's true. It's only
evolving.
beginning.
That's right. I want to go back to intention. I remember what I was going to say. We were talking about how important intention is for people around us, not just for ourselves. And I was having this argument with, well, I don't want to say it was an argument, but with Sarah, where is it important for what other people say about you and think of you, and how much does that correlate to what you think of yourself? And are the two intertwined? Because it's a common thing to talk about, even as growing up in high school and in college, of, people will say you can't care about what other people think, and, other people will disagree with that. And when we're talking about intention, you had mentioned something to that effect of how people, look at you. And I was wondering what your opinion was on that, and if, people's insights and opinions about yourself, how much does that really correlate with yourself? And yeah, what do you think?
I think that it's both. In a lot of things, it's the and both. Yes, I do care what other people think, and I can say that I haven't always, in this human form, responded as my best self. But with that being said, I really try to learn from the mistakes that I've made, from the choices that I've made, from the impact that I've had on others. And I do care about the feedback that I receive, because how else am I going to align myself to better serve if I'm not listening?
That's exactly right.
But with that being said, I can say that I haven't always been the best listener. And sometimes, especially when things cut us deeply, it's hard to see that in the moment and to take those things into account. So sometimes, we have to sit with it or put a pin in it and then come back to it when it's time for us to process. But then the duality of that is we really shouldn't care, like we should do us.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it can take years to process. Can it?
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, I'm the one that has to live in this body. I have to sleep with myself. I have to be at peace with me. So if I'm not honoring that, if I'm not being true to that, if I'm not listening to me and really not, for lack of a better terms, not caring what other people think, like, I can't spend so much time giving my energy away to thoughts and opinions of others, because I've spent a lot of time in my life doing that, and it has unfortunate consequences, and it causes pain to me and to those that I love. But I feel like when I'm honoring myself, then I can honor others better. And when I'm willing to receive and to learn and to apply, again, I become a better form of me, and I can be a better friend, a better mom. So
be you, but listen is what I take from that.
Exactly. Yes.
Be you, but listen. I'm really happy to have you on. The other podcasts I've had kind of correlate with this one. Daniel Dent, we talked about anxiety and depression. How can you overcome that? What are some things that you can do to stay positive? I think you've answered a lot of questions for us there. And then talking to Tyrone Williams, an International College Broadcasting instructor, had said, your potential is unlimited. And with Reiki, with yoga, the potential is unlimited. We only use a very small percentage of our brain. I think yoga would help to open up some of that capacity for sure, just from what we've talked about. But I really appreciate having you on. Where can people go see you? Where can they get some yoga instruction from Sarah?
Well, right now, like I said, I am working at the Brown Street Day Yoga.
Okay.
But I occasionally, pop up here and there in the Miami Valley at other places. But if anyone is interested, they can always reach out to me through Messenger on Facebook, and I would be happy to hook them up with where I'm working, or reach out to you, and then you can text me, and then I'll let you know what I've got going on.
Great. And that's a beginner class, advanced class, or all served?
I typically teach more of a beginner to intermediate style, but I will provide modifications and cues for any level of student based off of where they are physically, emotionally, spiritually. But again, yoga's for everybody, and it's a personal journey. So even in my classes, for the very advanced yogis that may be physically surpassing what I'm even capable of, I encourage my students to take a variation of a posture that is true for them. So wherever you're at, there you are, and I'm happy to meet you there.
Awesome. Hey, Sarah, thank you for talking with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you have a good one. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.